You can call me queen. Call me queen. Cause the crown is mine. Queens always do it like this, like this, like this. They want a piece of my crown, so bow down like this. Queens always do it like the wrist.
Well, hello everyone. Welcome back to the channel. This is Lyralyn with House of a Coty Design. It's been a little bit since I've posted. Excuse my voice, it's a little raspy today. This asthma and this winter weather cannot wait for some beautiful sunshine. Which brings me to this video of what I'm sharing today. I'm making another dress, testing out a pattern for my next trip to Cabo this week. So what I have here in front of me, let me show you. So I have this beautiful flower printed black and white chiffon fabric. This is going to be a tiered, multi-layered sundress. So I decided to do a square neckline in the front here, as well as a square neckline in the back. And I have all of the tiers here already cut out. So share with me as I put this beauty together. If you guys are new to the channel, everything is about sewing, embroidery, pattern making, design. And I've been doing this now for about 3 years. So hitting that like button, commenting, sharing, and of course, becoming a subscriber so that you can share in the sewing journey with me as I put several items together. Again, whether it be from sewing, pattern making, or embroidery is what this is all about. So follow me as I go, and today I will be using the Bernina. This is the 740 machine. It's one of the newest to my collection. Completely computerized. Everything is programmed just for me. And let me show you what this beauty does, guys. As soon as I hit that on button, it gets a little wonky in the beginning with the noise that it makes. I don't know why. It takes a few seconds for it to kind of connect, but that's what it does. Wait for it. There it goes. Welcome, Lyralyn. Let's sew. So here we are. We're going to get started today. I've got to change this thread out to black and change my bobbin out, and meet me at the sewing machine. Okay, so I've gotten my machine all threaded, new bobbin. And what I'm going to do is start with the front piece. And according to the pattern, I have this big dart here. So I have to pin the dart, and I've allowed for the notches on each side of the dart so that I know exactly where that dart intake is supposed to be. So what I'm gonna do first, from the wrong side of the fabric, I'm going to meet both of those notches together and line those notches up. And I like to keep a pin in place. And of course, on the fabric, I've also marked the end of the dart with a little dot with my erasable fabric pin. And that kind of helps me to know where this dart is supposed to end. I'm going to put a pin in that area as well. And I'm going to do the same thing to the other side from the wrong sides of the fabric. I'm going to take both of those notches and bring both of those notches together, little pieces that I made the slit here, and I just put in a pin. And then again, I find the area where I marked the end of the dart according to the pattern, that little dot, and I'm going to put a pin through that area as well, and then sew up those darts. Okay, so I start at the very bottom, and I will show you in just a minute what I'm referring to here. This area here, where both of the notches are, I'm going to stitch following from here all the way down to the tip of where my pin is located. And that's where I'm going to stop. And sometimes with this chiffon, it's really slippery. It's not easy to sew with, but it sure does have a beautiful drape. Beautiful drape. And I'm thinking, with the tiers, I wasn't really worried about it being too see-through, but for the top portion, I'm thinking I'm gonna have to probably put a lining in here. All right. I'm sorry, guys. Bear with me here. This is some slippery stuff. I'm just realigning this fabric here because it really wants to slip out of my hands. So I'm going to hold on to that as best as I can here and take this end, and I'm going to put that underneath the presser foot, both of those notches. Going to remove my pin and I'm going to lower the presser foot, and I'm going to stitch. No need to backstitch. And I'm just stretching this chiffon as I make it to the edge towards the pin here. Stretching that fabric out. The chiffon is so slippery. And as I get to that pin, I'm going to remove it and just let it stitch on past the edge. And you want those long thread tails, of course, for your darts. You're going to cut. All right, and let's see what that dart looks like. And on the inside, that's what that dart looks like. You can hardly see it, but it's just going to give a nice shape around the bust. And that's kind of the point, you know, of a dart. And you can kind of see the neckline there. So it's coming together. So I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Okay, so what I have here is the front portion of the bodice, and I'm going to take the back portion, put the pattern aside, and the back has two pieces. So we're going to take right sides, and chiffon is really tricky, guys, to know the right side from the wrong side. So you just want to be real careful that you've chosen the right fabric side. Sometimes it doesn't matter because it's so close. Sometimes one side looks a little fadier than the other. This side looks a little bit more vibrant to me than this side here. Okay, so right sides together, and of course with this pattern you can see neckline, so we're going to line up armhole to armhole, side seam to side seam, and the same thing with the other portion. We're going to line up back seam, center seam, side seam to side seam, and we're going to line up armhole to armhole. And once all that's done, we're going to go in and we're going to stitch at our 1/2 inch seam allowance. We're going to stitch, I'm sorry, we actually did 1/4 inch. We did 1/4 inch seam allowance at the neckline and 1/4 inch at the armhole. That's the only thing that's different. Everything else is 1/2 inch on this pattern. So I'm going to stitch up the shoulder seams first, and then I will move on to do the side seams. I'm going to leave the back open because this will call for a zipper that's connected throughout to the lower skirt. So I'm going to connect at the shoulders first. Okay, here, so I have right sides together, the front pin to the back here at the shoulder seams, and I'm going to stitch at my regular 1/2 inch seam allowance. Going to back stitch and stitch all the way across, removing those pins, and back stitch at the end. All right, so that's one shoulder seam. And I'm going to move over to the other side. Chiffon is really slippery, so you just got to take your time. There's no rushing through it. We're going to back stitch and stitch across at the 1/2 inch seam allowance. And back stitch at the end. Okay. So now I'm gonna move on to my side seams, and I'm going to stitch at a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Back stitch at the beginning. Keeping a little tension so that everything is nice and smooth. And I didn't worry about really overlocking these edges. I could have, but again, I said I was gonna go ahead and line this top bodice because it is a little see-through for me. So that's gonna take care of hiding those seams. And I'm gonna backstitch. I'm gonna do the same thing to the other side. Now I'll be moving on to the tiers and the skirt. Okay, so this is the beginning of the dress. This is the bodice portion here. And to the bodice, I'll have a tier here, at the waist. I'll have the second tier and then the third tier. But I usually stop here just to kind of check for fit. Did a little contouring here at the top, so I think it fits nicely. Nice area underneath the underarms, nice and comfortable. It's not too baggy, it's not too tight. The shoulder, I've contoured, so that fits nice there as well. And just a nice, good 2 or 3 inches of ease, around the waistline and at the area of the hip. So the back is cute with the square neckline as well as the front. So I'm just gonna move on to the skirt portion. Keep watching. Okay, so what I have here is the second tier of the actual skirt base. If you look at the pattern that I have here, it was also cut on the fold for the front, and then I have the back portion cut into 2 pieces, and I've notched the center back. So both of these pieces will actually meet at center back here, right sides together, and I'm gonna stitch both of the side seams at a 1/2 inch seam allowance, doing the same thing for the front and back third tier. Lining those up, center back edges based on the notches lined up, and stitching up the side seams. Okay, moving on to those side seams. 1/2 inch seam allowance. Back stitch at the beginning. Keeping tension on the seam as I sew. Moving those pins so they don't break. And back stitch at the end for that cut. And this is tier number 2. Same thing to this side. Excuse me. And back stitch. And I'm going to do the same thing to the next part. So basically what I have is just a big rectangle here for that first portion, and there's the back in 2 pieces. Again, I'm leaving it open because there will be a zipper in the back. Okay, so these pieces are quite large. They're large rectangular pieces that are cut out for the actual ruffle or the multi-layered tier portion of the underlying skirt. So I have this one that matches the third tier of the third part of the skirt. I have, you see on this side, I have a second tier, and I also have the first tier that attaches to the bottom of the bodice. So there are 3 different pieces that attaches to the bodice, that attaches to the second tier, and that attaches to the first tier. The only thing that you really have to watch for this one so that everything lies and drapes nicely are, of course, the grain lines and making sure that they're parallel to your selvage edge of your fabric here. And I'm going to cut 1 piece for each of these, and I'm going to gather at the top. And with the gathering, basically I'm just going to run 2 layers of my basting stitches, the longest machine length stitch on the machine. I think mine is like a 6, approximately 1/2 inch apart, all the way across the top. Some people like to hand gather it because it's easier to be able to pull it through quicker. I just think it's quicker, it's neater to be able to do the gathering stitch by machine, 2 rows, and once you're done, taking out that bobbin thread from below, pulling it, leaving those thread tails long, again pulling it and gathering as you're cinching the top. So for all 3 of these pieces, I'm going to cut it out and then gather along the top. Okay, so I'm moving on to that 3rd tier. I'm working from the bottom of the skirt all the way up to the bodice. So this is the longest piece, goes all the way out. I think it's like 66 inches or so in terms of width. And I'm going to gather this skirt all the way across. I have the machine set at 6, which is the longest machine stitch, just for a straight stitch. And I come down about 3/4 of an inch to start. So I'll probably start here at 3/4 and then go back within that seam allowance here, which would be about 1/4 of an inch from the edge of the fabric here, and do another parallel row of stitches. And as I come to the edge here, I'm just going to leave a long thread tail, as I said before, and cut. And go in to the 1/4 of an inch from the top and do the same thing. Okay, so here everything is basted with the dress. I did go in and cut the bodice down to waistline on the pattern. It did come closer to the hip, so I cut that up to the waistline. And then for each of the tiers at this point, so basically you have a ruffle here, or a peplum if you call it that, that's connected to a tier underneath. It's kind of hard to see because it's all the same color, but that's a tier. That tier, that's a skirt. And then I have my 2nd tier or ruffle attached to a skirt. And at the bottom, to that very last skirt, I have another ruffle. So basically it's like 3 tiers and everything's gathered all together. So it's looking pretty good. So I'm gonna work on the fit, see what it fits like, and if everything fits well, I'm gonna go in and I'm probably just gonna hem the edges here, just a nice narrowed rolled hem to each of those. So no need for a lining because of the underlayer of the skirts. Okay guys, let's keep sewing. So here guys, I'm doing my actually modeling of the dress here in Cabo. This raspy voice that you heard at the beginning of the video was actually recorded prior to leaving. But let me tell you, once I was able to hit Mexico, Cabo San Lucas, at this beautiful resort, embracing the beautiful weather, the awesome vibes, fabulous food, great people, that asthma and flare-up just dissipated. So I'm so grateful for that. But as far as this video goes, this was just a quick demonstration of how I put together the 3-tiered maxi skirt. Again, this was a self-drafted pattern. I just tested the pattern. If I had to do this one over again, I probably would have deepened the ruffles of the tiers. I would have made those long rectangular pieces that you saw longer to get a little bit more of flare around the waist and around the back as well. But overall, I love the detail. The only thing that was missing in the video are the cute little strap ties that you see around the shoulder, and just made little diamond pendant. You know, I love my bling belt to go around the waist just to accentuate that area too. But thanks for watching. If you guys are new to the channel, hit that like button and bell notifications. You'll get all of my videos, everything about sewing, embroidery, pattern making. And thank you for watching. Let me know in the comments what you think about this video, what you'd like to see me load up next. Typically I post about once a week. Sometimes I go into once a month if I'm just super busy doing other things. But again, thanks for watching guys. Hope you enjoyed this. House of Akoti Design. Have a great day. Bye.